It's all out of context. Did Justin Trudeau get his award? Isn't it for a Raging Golden Eagle? Apparently, he was given an award.
Oh yeah. I mean, he was awarded it. I don't know. Did Justin Trudeau come and accept the award for Mangina of the Year?
No, he got it, but I just couldn't get him to come over here and accept it.
He didn't even send
he just doesn't want it.
He didn't even send
to
his mom to come accept it for him.
I think his wife said that he's not allowed to talk to me or something. I don't know.
You're a bad influence.
Okay. Right, guys, let's bring on our first guest. It's Peanut Yoda.
Okay.
And he wants to talk to us about his situation. He says, 1 second. He wants to talk about men who have had their kids taken away through marriage and how a man can reconnect and reconstruct their child, the life of their child. His son is 19 today. He's been to prison for 8 years for a crime he did not commit. So I'm going to pull him in now.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yo, Peanut.
Hello.
You there? Okay, he's...
Did we lose Peanut Yoda? Did he fall into the swamps of Peanut Dagobah?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. There he is.
No, actually, that's kind of like a porn name.
That's your porn name?
Well, the Peanut was my favorite dog, my favorite pet.
Wait, so you did porn, or is that like a joke? Like you were actually a porn star?
No, he's making a reference on how you come up with your porn name. You know, it's like your pet, the streets you grew up on, and all that other crap.
More caffeine, TFM.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You need to watch more porn, man. That would fix all this.
Well, I don't watch the stories. I just skip to the part where she's like doing the reverse cowgirl and jerk off, and then go on with my day.
Yeah, that's true. Me too.
Time management.
Right. You gotta, it's like blowing your nose. You don't want to spend all day doing it. You just want to, get the poison out and go back to what you were doing.
Exactly. So, Peanut, tell us your story.
Yeah, I'm trying to turn down the stream.
Uh-oh.
Just mute the stream.
Yeah, just pause the stream. This is real life. This is happening. Oh, did we lose?
He's done. That was too much fun.
That was it. He just couldn't handle it. It was too real. He got too...
I'm not flushing yet, guys. Give him a chance, man.
He got too woke. All right, we'll give him a couple seconds. I know. So, this is the problem with the Discord versus, like, a traditional radio call-in show. Because everybody knows how to use a phone, but this kind of stuff could be new.
Remember, I was in prison for 8 years. I'm a little behind on the technology.
Okay. How loose is your butthole, if you don't mind me asking? Is that a personal question, or did I cross a line?
It wasn't personal anymore. Shit, he was in prison.
There you go. Oh, we lose him again?
He said, "Fuck you guys, I'm out."
Come on, is it the push to talk? You can't figure out.
I can hear you. I just backed out of the Twitch.
Okay, right. There you go. All right, so
tell us your story.
Yes, we're here. We are here, live on the TFM show to hear your story. There's probably like TFM. Dozens of people with bated breath waiting to hear your story.
Okay, well, it's a very complicated story, so I'll try to be as brief and as concise as possible, but it's very difficult to get to have a grasp on it unless you really spend some time, and nobody's going to listen to the whole thing. I mean, you fall asleep.
Why don't we do this?
Basically,
hold on for a second, Peanut. Why don't we do it like this, just to make it a little bit easier? Since I've got a little bit of legal background, I'll go ahead and ask you some questions to kind of direct the conversation, which will make it a little bit easier for you to get the important facts of your story out. But that way, people won't get confused. Will that work for you?
Yeah, because I have a fear, and I have a lot of anxiety about not being believed, and I know that people will believe me if they know me, and I do have some evidence and hard evidence that I could present if need be to my son maybe in the future or something like that, but. Right now, it's like I just have this fear of not being believed.
Yeah, that's understandable if you went to jail for something you didn't commit, honestly.
Yeah, and you got to understand, too, that, and I don't know if you've seen any of the streams I've been on previously, I've got over 10 years of family law experience. Some of that included criminals, some of that included DV experience, and I went through my own personal, gauntlet. So don't worry about what anybody thinks. You went through it. You're there. We're here now, and we'll go from there. So let me ask you this: how many children do you have?
I have one. I have a son. He's 19 today.
All right. Well, happy birthday to your son. Next question. Were you married to the mom?
Yes.
How long?
We were together from 93 to 2004, but we were only married for about 5 of those years.
All right. And then in 2004, you got divorced?
Yes, she filed for divorce in 2003 and then finalized in 2004 sometime because we were battling,
Is the incarceration related to the divorce?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Why don't you tell us, in your words, what led to you being put in prison?
Well, I think if I would have to go all the way back to being raised by a single mother, and I was in the military at the time that I met this woman, and when I met her family, she from the outside she had an intact family. She had a father, a mother, although her mother was Korean and her father was from the East Coast. He was a black gentleman, and she had 2 or 3 sisters, a brother, and they had a nice home. He was retired military, and so I thought this was a healthy family. So I mean that's what I think I wasn't thinking that necessarily in that way at that time, but I think sort of, like I was attracted to something that was into, because I wanted to have a family, and I hated coming from my single parent household where I was a latchkey kid, and I said she would be a wholesome girl, but what I was ignoring was all the signs and symptoms that she was a manipulator. And I can tell you, the first time that I met her, she had a line of guys trying to get her number. She was dressed like a slut, but she tried to act wholesome at the same time, and she wasn't interested in me until I blew her off in a conversation when I walked away because I thought she was rude. And then she ran after me, and then she wanted my number. So if that gives you an idea of how her behavior is, it's always the opposite. She's
yeah. Well, and you got to remember too. I mean, when did you meet her?
93.
93, and you were in the military?
Yeah, I just got off active duty. I'd been in Iraq.
Army?
Yeah, Army.
Okay. So here's the thing. In 1992, 1993, you're in the military. You've been in a combat zone. Red pill, blue pill really wasn't around then as far as, as far as like the language was concerned. You didn't have a father out of the home. I'm not making excuses for you. I'm relaying the facts as I understand them. Don't kick yourself for that. But and here's this thing too. If, for the people that are listening, we all make mistakes in life. If you spend time kicking yourself on that, that's energy you're taking away from moving forward in your future. You got to just let that shit die sometimes when it comes to, trying to armchair quarterback your situation. And I could appreciate that you were insecure coming in on the show, and whether or not people would believe you. Who cares? The point is that this is your story. It's your reality. It's your truth. And I mean, obviously it's empirical truth, and, we don't necessarily want you lying to us, of course, but I don't think that that's going to be the case, or else you wouldn't be here. So with that in mind, don't worry about, you didn't see the signs, because I'll tell you what, hindsight is always 20/20. So with that in mind, you get together with this woman, then what happens?
Well, I was married at the time that I was playing house, because I had married a woman that was in the Army also. She was a medic, and so that one didn't work out too well, because we were just like I said, playing house. We were just young, 20. She was like 21. I was like 22, 23. So the sex was much better with the woman that my future ex-wife, with her, and so she would fix up a plate for me, and she would cook food, and she would take my shoes off at the door, that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm leaving this woman for this other woman. I'm out of here. And I got a job at a prison as a correctional officer and in Kansas. And then we lived there for a little while and got tired of being broke. And so I moved her back out. I moved her out to California, even though her family's in Kansas, and she, made a fit about it. But that was when she started acting bizarre, like throwing temper tantrums and banging her head against the wall if she thought if somebody called, it was a missed call or a wrong number, she thinks I'm cheating on her. So it was always constantly being accused of stuff. I mean, ridiculously. That was my first taste of that. I had never had that before. And
well,
of course.
Wait, can I just interject something? Let me just interject something. So you were married. She was like flirting with you, and you left your wife for her, correct?
Yeah, well, she knew that I was married, but she pretended like she didn't know because she had her sisters there. They grew up in that little small town. It's a small town,
right?
So
But I'm just
knew I was married.
But here's the thing. Like, I think she probably subconsciously knew that you left your previous wife for her, so that probably helped enable her paranoia that you were cheating on her. Because if you're going to leave your first wife for her, what's going to stop you from leaving her for someone else?
Well, I thought what was bizarre about it, and I didn't clarify. I'm glad you brought that up because, okay, let me explain. So, while I'm married to this other woman, she wants me to stay there until we're ready to move out together because we're going to plan our exodus, right? And she's married too, by the way. She just left her husband in Colorado. She's like 21 or something like that. So she's always telling me, "Oh, you better get home now and make sure you have sex with your wife because we don't want her to be suspicious." That type of stuff. So she was okay with sharing me for the time that we were there, but then as soon as I got in the household, everything changed. I mean, it just immediately changed.
Wow.
I mean, in a bizarre way.
So here's a question. So once you're done, you're doing the marriage thing. You're out in California. When did she get pregnant? Before or after you married her?
Well, I'm not perfect. So there was a time when I came out to California that we were really struggling, and I ended up accepting some stolen property and this ties into how I got married to her. And so I ended up getting a receiving stolen property charge, and that I had to go to jail for 6 months. So she left and went back home while I was in jail. She didn't tell her parents that I was in jail because she was too embarrassed, she says, even though she helped commit the crime. I mean, she just received it too. And then she said, when I was talking to her on the phone from jail, she, because after you've been in jail for 6 months, man, you're pretty, like, I'll do anything. I want to have, that comfort again. So she said, that I promised to give her a baby and marry her, that she would come back out and get an apartment and have everything ready for me for when I got out of jail. And I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. Even though I'd been telling her all along I didn't want to have kids and all this other stuff. I stuck by my guns for a little while, but as soon as I went to jail, I just went soft. And so as soon as I got out in July of 97, I got her pregnant, and my son was born in May of 98.
All right. So we fast forward. We have a son in 98. You guys are reestablish your relationship. So things are going okay. Obviously, you got the standard marital problems. What led to the divorce?
Well, after my son was born, I kicked myself into high gear and became a manager where I was working. We bought a big house in the suburbs. She started working in real estate and making a lot of money, probably 6 figures almost before the bubble burst. And then her sister moved out with us, and her sister looks a spitting image of her almost. They look like twins, and to me very attractive. And so she accused me of sleeping with her sister after she moved her sister into the household a few months later.
Okay. So it was her idea to move the sister in, and then she was, well, again, yeah, so it sounds like
she was planning an exit strategy.
Yeah, and also both of you seem to have a history of cheating on other people with each other, so you can't, it's like what goes around comes around type of thing.
Yo, yeah. Listen, I was a big time cheater, but it's one of those things where I don't like cheating, and it's you don't know why you're doing it. When you shouldn't be married when you're in your 20s anyway. That just doesn't make sense to me. I look at it now, I go, well, doesn't make sense. So the issue wasn't the cheating, because I gave that up, and then it became something else. So it was always changing. There was always and there's all this bizarre behavior in between too, because now I've got my friends and family saying, there's something wrong with her. She exaggerates stories in a weird way. She's constantly trying to isolate me from my family. it's a codependent relationship for sure.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like you both kind of had issues going into it. So obviously adding marriage and children isn't going to make all of the baggage you have go away.
No, and no matter how hard I tried, I became weaker as I tried to make her happy. You know, because I hear you guys talk, and we talk about female nature and how we and it's our drive, or so to speak, to make a woman happy, and that's what I did. I would say sorry when she was mad at anything, and she'd say, well, what are you sorry for? And I would just say everything. You know, I just became such a simp and such a pussy that it just made she probably just looked at me with disgust, because I would just give her whatever she wanted to. Whatever she wanted, I'd let her do.
Yeah, that's never good.
So what actually happened that led to the divorce?
Well, she when she thought that I was well, she was verbally abusive towards me. Okay, now listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I have never ever hit my wife or a girlfriend. And I'm not saying that so I can defend myself to say I'm not a bad guy or something like that. I just don't do it. I was raised by my mother, 2 sisters, and my wife is no slouch. She's a pretty tough girl. I don't think I would hit her ever. Well, maybe now.
Yeah, I've uppercutted girls before.
What's that?
I've uppercutted girls.
Yeah, I completely support feminism. I'd blast it.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Women deserve equal rights and lefts.
If I had it to do over, there was a few times where she deserved to have the shit beat out of her, honestly, because I mean she put. I'll get to it, but she was always calling me names. You bald-headed skinny faggot. You whatever. Whatever she could pick on any insecurity that I have, she would do it. You know, if you're not going to be with me, you're going to be by yourself. She would say. If you know, all the things that you hear in society that you think that men say to women, that's the stuff she would say to me.
Okay.
So, and I never understood that. I was like, how? I don't understand how somebody even. I never even called her a bitch. I don't know how she does this. You know.
Well, she was
getting more and more.
Right. Well,
yeah, she just got meaner.
Well, she was shit testing you. You were giving into her, and she was trying to get you mad so you would stand up to her. Women, this is what pisses me off. The whole time she probably wanted you to put her in her place, but she can't tell you because women don't want to take responsibility for their own feelings. So they play these mind games with you, and they expect you to read their mind. But unless you know about female nature, you don't know how to read their mind. So it's not your fault that like you didn't know how to like react to her. It's just one of those things where, you know, because you even describe yourself as a simp, kind of giving into her, giving her whatever she wanted, apologizing for things you didn't do. She was shit testing you, and you kept failing, and she was trying to start fights with you so that you'd stand up to her. So it's, you know, obviously it's water under the bridge now, but just so you know, anyone out there facing a similar situation, this is what's going through her head. This is why she's doing what she's doing. Exactly.
Is that what's going for her head?
Yeah,
I think so.
Exactly.
All right, so tell us about what led to the divorce.
Yeah, we still haven't gotten there.
I just want to say something about what TFM just said, because you're right, TFM. You're absolutely right. But I think also when I didn't stand up to her for that period of time, then when it was really over in her mind, and she was still shit testing me, and then now we got the legal system involved. Then I stood up to her the way I should have, but it was too late. It was too late. And then, now I'm just challenging her, and she used her overriding power and showed me who the boss was.
Well, it's ironic that men, you know, when you love a woman, it's like you don't want to stand up to her. You don't want to pass her shit test because you care about her, and it's only when things are over and you basically realize like she's leaving you or she's taking your kids and she's fucking you, then you actually stand up to her. And that's the ironic thing. It's like, if you just would have treated her like you didn't love her and you didn't give a shit about her, she would have respected you. But because you loved her, it's like, I don't know what it is. It's like this weird paradox in nature. Like, women are attracted to guys that treat them like shit. And guys know this. I mean, there's movies about this. So, you know, treat women like shit. You have absolutely nothing to lose.
Well, and I don't know how I forgot that, because I realized I was kind of a late bloomer. I didn't start really getting a lot of interest from women until I gave up. Like you said, once I stopped giving a shit. But I didn't really hit my stride till about 23, and she, I should have remembered how I met her, and that was I just said, "See you later." You know what I mean? Like, fuck you, I don't need you.
Yeah, but you forgot all that when you were in jail.
I forgot about all that. Yeah, something happened in between where my brain hardened, and I just got into that marriage rut, and that the woman's a happy life, happy wife, whatever that crap.
Yeah.
Crap is. It's bullshit.
Okay. All right.
All right. So moving on.
All right. So how she filed for divorce after the she was calling me names and basically saying that I'm no good, and it's just stupid stuff she's saying to me. And so I insinuated that I was sleeping with her sister. That's what I did. So It was one of those stupid. Yeah, it was. Well, at the time it was awesome. The timing was perfect, and her sister came out and was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Right move. Yeah, so that was the right move. Good job.
Yeah, no, that's a day that'll live in infamy. So she tried to beat her sister's ass. So I had to physically. She tore up the whole house, chasing her sister. I'm in between. I've got trying to keep the kids back because there's our nephew's there too. Her son, her sister's son, my son. They're about 5 at the time, and so and then she finally leaves, and then her brother comes over to beat me up because apparently she went and told him that I'd hit her. Well, her sister confirms, because at the time she was kind of on my side, her sister, because she's pissed that I insinuated that I slept with her, but then she's glad that I protected her from her sister. So she told her brother the truth. No, he didn't do anything to her. She's the one acting crazy. So he was like, when I told him what was going on, he just said, "My sisters are stupid," and he left. And but then she came over and got our son, and she went and hid with him, and then she filed for divorce.
Okay, so you get a divorce filed, and you're in California at the time, right?
Yes.
All right. So somebody serves you with a divorce. She's got custody of the kid, and at some point you get the whole child support thing. This is just kind of the standard operating procedure.
Not yet, because she's claiming.
Oh.
What?
Not yet, because what she did was file for divorce. She filed for a restraining order. She said that I'm a danger to her and her son. She said that I've been beating her, punching her in the face, and then her sister also, after she moved out, went and got a matching restraining order and said I was stalking her. So you see what I'm saying? They work together because then they're trying to get custody of our son.
Right. Yep. It actually happens a lot, whereas the family of the mother, and usually women don't have to go through all that. Usually it's a pretty much a slam dunk. They're going to get custody anyway. But if there's ever a worry, like I'm guessing maybe because she has a little bit of a checkered past herself, maybe she was a little bit concerned about that. But yeah, her family will go scorched earth on you and try to destroy you, and they'll all falsely accuse you together and get their story straight because they want to keep their grandbabies or whatever. So,
yeah, it's like they felt they had a right to take, because her father-in-law wrote a false statement. I mean, my father-in-law, and then her sister, of course, said I was stalking her.
Yeah.
And said I was calling her hundreds of times. So when I went to the restraining order hearing, I took the phone records and I'd called her 15 times in 2 months. And I took her son to school every day. I take the kids to school. That was my job. And so I was like, wow, and the judge didn't even want to look at the evidence that I had because I had gotten the phone records myself, and it's got to come directly from the phone company. And I said, well, this is going to be the same. When I come
no, it does, and I'll address that in a minute. But keep going. So you get the DV order against you. It's a civil domestic violence restraining order, correct?
Right. So a state. What do you call that? It's the highest one.
Yeah, the domestic violence protection order. It's a civil order that they give you. Now, did they give you supervised visitation?
No, because not right away. When I went to my first hearing, it was about 2 weeks, so I hadn't seen my son in 2 weeks. I went to the court. I had my friends call her and say that I wasn't going to get an attorney. I'll give her whatever she wants. I just want to start seeing our son, and I didn't care about anything. The money, I said, I don't care. So I went to court, and I didn't have an attorney. And she's got this guy looks like Jack Palance. I mean, some old ass attorney that's supposed to be some kind of heavy hitter. And he gets up and does this dramatic synopsis on me and says, "Your Honor, he's on an absolute campaign of terror." And so I'm sitting there looking at him, waiting for what the campaign of terror was, right? And apparently the campaign of terror was just me acquisitioning or getting the income tax check for the year.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. So once you have the domestic violence order against you, that's when they start to supervise visits?
No, because see, this is where it gets a little complicated, and I'll try to keep it on track for you because nothing. There's going to be a big blow up here that's going to change everything because we didn't even get a chance to get that far. The judge gave when she was making accusations at that time at that first court hearing, I told the judge that everything she said was absolutely false. I've never punched my wife in the face. She doesn't have a picture of a black eye.
So what was the judge? What did the judge do?
The judge gave her and her attorney 2 weeks to come up with statements or affidavits saying that I was an abuser. So gave them some, and they already had like 2 weeks, to come up with evidence there. And I said they won't have any evidence. Man,
okay,
so the judge said, I asked the judge, I said, Your Honor, I said, I haven't seen my son in 2 weeks. Can I please see my son? He says, and he yelled at me, and he said, Mr. Bear, it's going to be another 2 weeks before you see your son, if that.
Okay,
like I disrespected him.
Two things. One, you don't want to dox yourself, and secondly, so you come back in the 2 weeks, and what happens?
We didn't make it to the next.
What happened after you left the hearing then?
So I go back to work for about a week, and then she calls me at work, and she says, she leaves a voicemail for me, and she says that she wants to meet me at a park to exchange. She said she would let me see my son. And now also at that hearing, the judge gave me control of the house because on the restraining order she had another residence. So she had me on the restraining order for 2 different residences, and she was using the utilities in my name. She was doing all kinds of ganky shit. So I didn't. The locksmiths that came out to the house because I had the locks changed as soon as I got control of the house, and the locksmith said, we were just out here. And I said, oh yeah, there was another woman that had it. She tried to hire us or ask us if there was somebody that we knew that could beat you up. And I said, you're kidding me, right? And he's all, no. And he goes, I said, would you make that statement in court? And he was like, no, we're not saying nothing in court. We don't get involved in that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, thanks a lot. I tried to talk him into it, but they were like, no. So when she called me, I was a little suspect. I figured she was going to try to have me beat up or something. But I'm also wanting to see my son too. So I call her back after she leaves a voicemail, and I say, okay, and we agree to meet at the park down a couple miles away. And so I go there at a certain time, I think like 4 o'clock or something. And she meets me. I told her to meet me in the middle of the park because I wanted to be able to see what was coming. So after that, we talk, and then she begins coming on to me. Saying she misses me, she's rubbing up on me, and we've been married and been together for quite a while. So I kind of got weak to that, and she said, let's go back to our house, and that we were going to drop off our son at her, I guess the people that she was staying with. But we couldn't, they weren't home. So we came back to the park. So we had to drive in her car away from the park, and we came back, and then we started arguing. And then I got out of the car, and then she said something to the effect of, we'll see who they believe now. And she hit the gas. She tried to turn the steering wheel so she could, she wasn't trying to directly hit me, but I was standing by the front left bumper, and the bumper caught my leg, and she crushed my foot. She ran over my foot and it's a big SUV. And so I was my foot's crushed. I stand back up. She's got to put the car in reverse to try to, because it's very small. She couldn't get it around the little bend or the corner, and she had to back up, and I stood up and punched the window. And then she really gunned it then and got the hell out of there. And then I jumped in my car, and I went to chase her, but my car spun out because my whole foot is numb. It's now on no feeling, and I'm in shock. And so I just drive past her. She's at the light, and I just flip her off and say, "Fuck you," and I just took off on the freeway. And then here's where it gets stupid. Excuse me. So I get on the freeway, and I don't know whether to go to the hospital or go back to work. So I'm doing about 90, and I end up wrecking the car no more than 3 minutes after leaving seeing her at the light, and I flipped over my car, and I ended up breaking my hip, my nose, and got banged up pretty bad. And so I'm laying there with the car upside down. I had to crawl out of the car, and luckily there was some other drivers there, and they helped get me to the side of the road. And then a few minutes later, the cops show up, and I was like, "Thank God, the cops!" And I would try to tell them what she had done, and they said they were there to arrest me. And I was like, "What? What? Why are you arresting me?"
All right, so you get arrested.
So she said, so what she did was...
She accused you of criminal domestic violence and probably rape.
Nope. She accused me of attempted rape, about 2 or 3 different kinds of rape. She said that I held her with a pair of scissors and a box cutter. But there was no... That's totally not true. And
okay, so she accused you of crime. Did the cops arrest you?
Yes, they arrested me.
All right, so when you get arrested, they take you to the doctor first.
Yeah, I gotta go. My hip is broken and my nose is broken, and my foot's broken.
So they transport you to the hospital. They've got an officer paying attention to you. You get done out of the hospital, and I'm assuming that and cut me off if I'm wrong here. I'm assuming that you're in the hospital. Once you're triaged in the hospital, that's when they transport you to jail.
Negative. No, I'm in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. And they have 2 sheriffs on me at all times. I'm made out to be this big kidnapper because she said I drove her all over the county in the southern part of the county and went on this long drive trying to kidnap her and all this other stuff.
Right.
It was weird.
Right. In her car. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, well, she's in the driver's seat with the engine running, and I'm outside the car. I mean, this is...
We'll get to that in a minute. I just want to kind of get through the story to the point where you actually go to jail.
Well, I went to they transfer me. They do my arraignment at the hospital. The judge came and they arraigned me. They've got me for a high-speed chase. They added a high-speed chase on there too. And then so I get to jail. My bail is $100,000, and I go to the bail hearing, and I have a street paid attorney at that time. And he said, "This is not the judge to ask for a bail reduction." And I'm going to lose my job if I don't get out of here. I'm a manager at this place that, for a transportation manager. I've got probably 25 guys under me, and I need to get back to work. And so I'm panicking. And I said, just listen, there's no reason why he wouldn't lower my bail. I don't have a history of this stuff. This is all bullshit, right? And I didn't. And he gave a half-assed effort to get my bail reduced. And the judge, or then the prosecutor comes out and says that there's also a story saying that I kicked her in the stomach when she was pregnant, when she was 8 months pregnant or something like that, and caused her to have a miscarriage. But they said it was like June or July of '97. Now I was in jail at that time.
Yeah. Don't worry about that yet. I want to make sure we're focused on the facts in this one, and we'll go into that. I'm not dismissing you. I just want to try to keep you focused and directed. And the reason I'm doing that, again, it's not out of disrespect. It's to make sure the story is somewhat streamlined, but also to get the relevant facts out. Because here's the thing, and I want to make sure that everybody on TFM show knows this. This is really common. What this man is telling you right now is very common. It's not just common in California. It is common in every state in the United States. Okay? There are men that go through this type of bullshit every day. So I want to make sure, and I want to make sure that you understand, Peanut. Obviously, and no disrespect to you, but it's clear that you're not the sharpest knife in the drawer. The whole cheating thing and everything else. It is what it is. But at the same token, like I said, hindsight's 20/20. You know that. You don't need me to kick on you for that. So I just want to try to focus though on things. So she accuses you of a forcing a miscarriage and assault when you were in jail. They give you for high-speed chase. They put your bail at $100,000. Your attorney pulls his pants around his ankles, and you don't get bail. Then what happens?
Well, they raised my bail to $150,000, but I had a family member at the time who helped me out. Well, I thought they were helping me out, but it really wasn't help. She gave me $15,000 to get out of jail, the 10% or whatever. And she could have just put her house up. I don't know why she didn't do that. So it puts me in debt, and but we've got a house and equity and things like that. So I'm thinking, okay, when I sell the house, I'll pay you back. So I go ahead and get out of jail anyway. And that's when I found out the dates of the the false accusation about it. Listen, there's never a kick in the stomach about a miscarriage. It's just ridiculous. It's a made up story. And I also brought evidence to the DA with the voicemail saying that she invited me to the park because in the police report she says that she's been scared of me. I've been abusing her for years. I'm a masher. She didn't want to be.
Yeah, that's all boilerplate language. And again, I don't want to cut you off on that. That's all boilerplate language, and they all say that. So, and what I mean by boilerplate, for those that don't know, think of like a Microsoft Word template. The attorneys tell these women to say this shit. It's basically witness tampering, but it happens so often that it's almost gospel.
Yeah, I'm sorry to.
Uh-oh. Did we lose him?
Talk to me, Peanut. You cut off.
Oh, I said I'm sorry to focus on those things, but those are the things that hurt me the worst because
right.
They weren't true, and I couldn't believe that people would look at me because listen, I'm the type of person where I don't look like a thug. I was in the military for 8 years. I carry myself a certain way. I may sound like an idiot right now, but I'm not really an idiot. I'm a pretty decent dude. And
Peanut, I'm not judging you here, and I see you as you are.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. I'm just telling you how I feel at the time, that I don't understand how they would believe this. First of all, there's no evidence to it. Then they don't believe it. Don't believe it.
Well, let me jump in here. I know I've been pretty quiet. When I was falsely accused of rape, my own friends, not like my close friends, but people I would talk to and people I would associate with, people I considered, like casual friends, believed it. They didn't even ask me what happened. They just instantly believed the accusation. So, and when you're talking about cops and lawyers and judges who don't know you from like Buddha, they're not going to believe shit. They're going to assume that you're guilty because, they see 100 guys just like you every day. So, your own, unless you're like really close and someone really knows you like a brother, they're probably going to believe it because that's gynocentrism.
But I mean, what I didn't understand, there was plenty of evidence that would point more to my innocence than guilt.
Absolutely.
So she has no witnesses, right? I have witnesses that I have a phone. Other guy have a phone call, a voicemail that I gave to the DA that shows without a doubt that the first thing out of her mouth was a lie. That she invited me to the park and she did not sound scared. Listen, she just sounded very casual. But so it's very telling. I would say that would be the part where they throw some doubt in there, right? No. The DA accused me of having, maybe that was a false voicemail. Like, oh, well, how do we know it's real? I'm going, well, just call Sure West and get the voicemail. How hard is that? You guys are the DA. Or you work for the Department of Justice or whatever. I don't know why that's so hard.
What year was this?
This was 2003.
Okay. So so I'm assuming the DA charged you criminally for this. Is that correct?
Yes, I was charged with the high-speed chase, but that was later thrown out because I proved I was wrecked before she even made a 911 call. So that was the cops lying. So that they threw that out. Everything else stuck. The rape.
All right.
All that
Did
stuff.
you get it? Did you get a trial?
No, because I'm an idiot back then. She would wreck us after about 3 or 4 months of me staying away from her because I think I broke the restraining order one time when I went to go check some mail and I left some stuff by well, that's actually pretty important because I left a letter telling her that because I'm still at the time saying I'm sorry like an idiot. And she is playing into that. So she eventually 3 or 4 months later tells me I can come home. So what do I do?
And you're still under criminal indictment.
Yes, they gave her. Listen, I think it's this way. I think that the weaker the case, because the case was beyond weak. I mean, I know it doesn't matter, but it was so weak. I think they just charged me. It's like the weaker the case, the more charges you're likely to face. I'm not trying to rap there. I'm just saying I kind of see that now, because.
Well, we'll get it. Yeah, and there is an element of truth there. So I'm sorry. Go on.
No, so I'm missing. My routine has been. Well, you have kids. I mean, I spent my time from the time that my son was in diapers till he was 5 years old, the stay-at-home dad. I worked at night. I worked 2 jobs, and I was very close with my son. And so at that time, about 5, then he started being a little brat, and I'm working more, so he starts gravitate towards mama. So now she's very overly attentive to him. So she really babies him. And so that was the transition that went. And so I'm pretty heartbroken about not being home. I mean, I'm severely depressed. I'm almost.
Yeah. How long had it been since you'd seen your son after the time you'd been arrested?
It was like 3 months, and okay. they did finally give me supervised visitation, and I had to pay $70 an hour, but I couldn't afford that. I think I went for 1 hour one time, and I brought the PlayStation, and I met him at this place that the family court has, over some of it's a satellite area or satellite place, and he comes in and he acts afraid of me, and I was all, "What are you doing? Hey, come here, give your dad a hug." Well, she told me I couldn't hug him. She said I had to let him hug me, but he's acting afraid of me. So after about 15 minutes of me talking to him, he finally opens up. And then it's just like we've never been separated. Because listen, I've never spanked my son. I'm not a disciplinarian guy. He was a good kid. There was no disciplinary stuff that was going on to even warrant him even acting like that. And so when the visit was over, he ran to the door. He opened up the door because they said I had to stay inside while the other parent picked him up. And he opens the door and he screams outside, "Hey, Mom, Dad's not mean." And I said, "Did you hear that?" And she goes, "Oh, yes, I'm writing it down right now." And so I'm going, so obviously they're coercing him to tell him to be afraid of me, or he's just picking it up, somehow. I don't know what's being said, maybe he's just, because he's a very intuitive kid, too. He tells you what you want to hear. When he's with me, he'd say, "Mom is mean, huh?" And I'd say, "No, don't say that," because I try not to put him in the middle of stuff. But I'm the only one trying to do that. She's
right.
Like a.
So you've seen him a couple times after you got charged, right? Supervised. How many times did you see him supervised?
Just the once, and then we reconciled again.
All right. What happened then?
Okay. Well, then by that time I went and got attorneys. So, and I proved that she secreted away like $20,000. Like I had proof, like rock hard proof, and that it was going to get her at the settlement time. And so I went in there at settlement time. I still got restraining orders on me, and I just said, "Listen, I've got you." I didn't even let my attorneys talk. I just talked because I just saw them I saw them all as shysters now. I'm looking at them going, "You bunch of parasites." They were just soaking up our money, and I'm just mad. So I said, "Listen, if you just let me see my son," I said, "I'll forgive the $20,000. Just let me start seeing him." And right away, they're like, "Deal." So then it occurred to me that I'm about to go out to see the judge. Now I'm gonna bring this up to the judge, right? Or I'm gonna let the judge see that first I'm this masher and I'm so dangerous that I have to have supervised visitation, and that I might be because there's a letter also that I wrote to her, an apology letter where I said I've taken my son's innocence and he's only 4. And I wrote that in the context of divorce. If you read the letter, it's talking about that. It's not talking about anything sexual or anything like that. It's ridiculous. But she takes that one sentence out and put that in. That's why I had to have the supervised visitation, by the way. Because they said, "Well, he could be molesting him." And he's not accusing me of that.
Now, in the meantime, you still have a criminal case going against you, right?
Yes. And so,
all right, now hold on. I got to stop you. So you have a family law attorney that is handling the divorce. Do you have a criminal attorney?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you go to settle, and then what happens?
So I walk out of the courtroom, and the judge, because they go and you know this, they go and tell the judge what we're going to do, and then they just make it the formal thing out in the courtroom, right? So right. I walk out there, and he says he thanks my wife for being such a mature person. And then as an afterthought, he thanks me and says, "Okay, well, I'm glad you guys settled this." And I'm going, why isn't anyone saying anything about I just had to pay $20,000 to see my son? A minute ago, I couldn't even see him because of restraining orders, and I might be molesting him. But because I gave her money, I can see him.
Well, and let me break that down for you and the people on the stream. When you make a settlement with somebody in a legal case, like a civil case, now this is true not just for family law, but it's true for any kind of law. When you make a settlement, the terms of the settlement are usually not discoverable by the court. The court doesn't give a shit. The court just cares that it's an equitable settlement. Once the settlement is there, they move on with their day. But the negotiation process and stuff, that's all considered confidential. Does that make sense?
They had to drop the restraining order there.
Right.
So they had to know about it. The judge, that was all taken care of.
Right, but again, the judge won't talk about it on the record. The judge doesn't want anybody else to talk about it because they're like, it's a settlement, sign it, and let's go to the next thing.
Okay, I got you. Well,
yeah.
That was still upsetting that they just nobody said. So to me, this is so obvious. Like I just can't believe. Listen, I'm still in shock. I'm walking through this like a zombie.
Right.
I'm going through periods of major depression.
Can I just interject here? Peanut Yoda, I'm getting a lot of questions from the chat saying, what branch of the military were you in? Because people are making the insinuation that, maybe you should have, if you've got people shooting at you in Iraq or something, that you should, probably maybe kept a cool head under pressure when it comes to divorce courts and stuff like that.
They're different animals.
That's a good. I'm glad they brought that up because actually I was in the Army for 8 years, 4 years active. I was in tanks. One tank. I was on the front lines in Iraq. And when I say the front lines, I was literally the front tank that went into clear the mines out of the breach, and who went into enemy fire the first. I mean, I was in there first, and so that was a pretty harrowing time, and I had a lot of close calls with death. So there was, and I did handle that way better than I handled my divorce. But I think what was happening was I had an untreated case of severe PTSD, and I'm not talking about the fake I don't even like saying that because it's so overused now. People are getting it from Twitter and all this other bullshit. I honestly had PTSD, and I couldn't get help at the time through the military. And then I'm going through this horrible experience of losing my family and my son and being accused of all these stupid ass crimes. I couldn't. So yeah, and listen, my family backed away from me. And her family was rallying around her. So I'm outgunned. I'm outnumbered. I don't know where to turn. I don't even know why I didn't kill myself. I'm too big of a coward to kill myself. I mean, I've already discovered that. But I can't fight. I have no I don't know how to explain it.
I remember this quote from Gladiator, where if you remember after the first battle with the Germanian hordes, what was it? Maximus turns around and says that, soldiers have the luxury of looking their enemies in the eye. So people in the chat, if you're saying, he should be this, or he should understand how, certain things work, maybe, this wasn't, this just didn't work for him because he didn't understand the situation that was going on. Exactly. It's much easier to, shoot at people from tanks and stuff like that.
Just to chime in, men, if you're not educated about how gynocentric the system is, you just assume that these judges and lawyers are actually looking out, like they're there to uphold the law. They're there to see justice served. They will actually care. If you have evidence that your ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife is lying, of course they're going to care. Of course they're going to listen to you because they're there to serve justice. This whole concept that the courts only exist to hook the woman up, that these judges and lawyers are all feminists, this doesn't even enter the consciousness of most men. Unless you've been red-pilled, you have no idea how bad things are. It's not something you're born with. It's not like you just intrinsically understand how gynocentrism works.
Right. I've got a question from 555, and he says, what does Raging Golden Eagle have to say about all of this? Can we have some input from him? RGE, you've been pretty quiet there, dude.
Is he there? Yeah, he's been really quiet. Did he get disconnected?
No, I'm here. It's just no. As someone who has never been married and doesn't have kids, I'm not really qualified to speak on this. But I will say that it does kind of annoy me when people always say, "Oh no, you should have done this, you should have done that," because it's easy to armchair quarterback this whole situation, but it's completely different when you're sitting there, pretty much being faced with getting sent to jail for decades and getting accused of all this crap. I've never been accused of that, but I've been accused of some other things, and I was just standing there dumbstruck, like, what is this really happening? Like, what? So I can definitely sympathize with that. It's easy to say if you've never been through something how you should have acted, but until you're actually in the situation, you never know how you're going to act. It's almost like the fight or flight thing.
And there's also, you have to also throw into account that, this was his wife. Like, he was talking about how when she approached him, and it was obviously a trap. Like, if Admiral Akbar could speak, he would have warned him it was a trap. But then when she started flirting with him and kissing on him, he fell for it because, he was thinking with his heart and not his head. But unless you're in that situation, unless you're red pill, it's very hard to resist that. If a woman you actually had a history with, you had a child with, you were married to, she acts like she wants to reconcile. She acts like she wants you back. She acts like she wants to be a family again. Even if in the back of your mind it's a trap, you want to believe it's so bad that you're just willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, and then you walk right into the trap she's laid for you. So don't be so quick to judge him for making these poor choices, because, he, by his own admission, he wasn't red pill back then. These are the things that the average guy deals with. This is what I call becoming MGTOW the hard way.
Well, and to add on top of that, I worked in family law for 10 years, and probably 90% of all the horrible cases I touched were men's cases. And the story that Peanut is telling me is it's the average case I touched. So you have to understand that here's the thing. And I say this because of my background. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it, but I will say this. When you're fighting an enemy, and you know who that enemy is, and you're fighting for a cause that you believe in, whether it's the military or whatever your circumstances are, you have a clear idea in your mind who the friends are and who your enemies are. And like Peanut did, he knows he can rely on his tank crew. He knows he can rely on his squad, his battalion, and the people around him to protect him. So he knows where the enemy is. He knows where his friends are. When you're in family law and you're dealing with this, it is a non black and white engagement. And what I mean by that is that people who tell you that they are your friends are not. And women will manipulate you. They will use your emotions against you. They will set you up. So, like, to recap from a legal standpoint, and this will be a little bit of me armchair quarterbacking, the legal standpoint of where we are right now in the story, basically what ended up happening was that, Peanut got married to this woman. Peanut went to jail, and he was absolutely in love with this woman. And he got blue-pilled in jail because he knew that he wanted a family. He didn't want to go back to jail. If you've never been in jail, you don't understand. You don't understand the emotional impact and the trauma that it creates because of the isolation. In fact, they've done studies where people in jail actually have mental health challenges coming out. And I'm not saying that Peanut is mentally disabled. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying it's situational. It's like when somebody dies in your family, you grieve for them, and sometimes you feel depressed and emotional. But because it's situational, eventually that goes away. The jail situation is the same thing. When you have nothing in your life and you have four walls you have to stare at, and then you're talking to a woman who tells you that she loves you, that becomes your lifeline. You become completely dependent upon it emotionally and psychologically. So, when he got out, absolutely he was blue-pilled. Do I judge him for it? Absolutely not. This is a woman who said that she loved him. They ended up having a kid together. There it was. So because he was in love with her, he was not in the red zone. In other words, he was not in the combat zone with her. He was in the white zone. He felt he was safe. He wanted to, he loved her so much that he wanted to believe that what she was saying is true. And I say this not to try to speak over him, but because you can hear it in his voice. You can hear, and he knows, in hindsight, he knows that this probably wasn't the right decision. But again, hindsight is 20/20, and anybody can armchair quarterback. But when you're in it and you live it, there it is. And I did some of that too. I mean, so you have to understand that she was using him. when she got together with him in the park, she was using him. And his response, where he jumped in the car and drove off at a high speed and got into a car accident, those are normal responses to abnormal situations. The only thing that surprised me was that he didn't go and drink himself into a stupor first. A lot of guys will get depressed about that. They'll get completely heartbroken. They'll go get drunk and they'll get into a fight at the bar. They'll get charged with assault, or something else will come up, and they get, and what they end up doing is they end up screwing their situation worse than they would have had they been red pilled beforehand. And red pill is a new thing. It's a new thing for a lot of men. And so with that, and just so we're on the same page, I'm not condemning, I'm not judging, I'm not necessarily being, overly supportive per se, because I really don't know Peanut. But on the same token, these are the facts, and they're brutal. And here's the worst part. So he goes to court, and the judge knows that the judge knows that at the domestic violence hearing, the judge knows that they don't have enough evidence to give him a domestic violence restraining order in a civil court. So what do? Instead of dismiss it, they give the woman a chance to make her case stronger. And in the meantime, they still prevent him from seeing his child. Now, you have to understand that there's a term for that. It's called parental alienation syndrome. And what that means is that when you are separated from your child, you get depressed, you get upset, you get frustrated, and you feel the sense of loss. And it's very similar to when somebody dies, somebody who you're close to dies, and you feel that over and over again, and it doesn't go away.
Can I listen?
Go ahead.
I don't. Yeah, I'm sorry to jump in there. What you just said was absolutely true, and I've said that several times. That I don't know. My feelings didn't know the difference, and even now, because I haven't seen my son since he was 7. He's 19 now. I don't know the difference of him being dead or not. I mean, to me, the feelings. And I'm not disrespecting someone that's lost a kid.
No, not at all.
That would be horrible. But I don't think my feelings know the difference, and it's been just a chore to keep myself where I'm at now, because I'm not in the best shape of my life emotionally, but I'm still here. And there's a lot of guys that maybe couldn't go through this and pull through it. But you're right. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
And that's my point, is that, the difference is this, when somebody dies in your life, you grieve, you have that chance to grieve, you miss them, and you move on with your life. But in family law, when you are separated from your children and you don't understand why the woman who you dedicated your life to no longer loves you, you grieve over and over and over again. And until you get over that relationship, you'll grieve for her and you'll grieve for your child. And it doesn't matter what she did. It doesn't matter, how bad it is. And you can tell, hindsight, Peanut was probably naive for getting back together with her twice, or trying to reconcile twice. But
3 times.
Right. And again, it was because he loved her. He was committed to her, and he respected the institution of marriage. And that's where they got him. You have to understand, that's where they got him. And what I mean by that is this. I'll put money on it that if you go back and you find that family law court judge, and you find their name, and you do a search on LinkedIn, or you do a search for their resume, or you find some public information about them online, I guarantee you're going to find out that they've either donated to a feminist organization, they are a card-carrying feminist of an organization, or they lead some kind of feminist organization. The same thing with her attorney. And more importantly, they should have dismissed your case. They didn't, and that's the goal. The civil domestic violence restraining order was created to demonize men and violate their constitutional rights. Because let me tell you what's really happening here. When a woman accuses you of domestic violence, she accuses you of a crime, like murder, like theft, like assault. But in this case,
don't forget the
rape, all that. It's any kind of crime. It's a criminal offense. But when they do it in a civil case, it is very insidious. And I'll tell you why. When you get charged criminally, you get a right to an attorney. You get a right to a jury trial by a jury of your peers. You get a right to an impartial investigation. And on top of that, you get a right to confront your accuser. And even if you don't want to, you get a right to remain silent. Now, in a civil case, you don't get any of those rights. So what ends up happening is it, and this probably happened in Peanut's case too. They filed a DV restraining order against him. They gave him maybe 14 days, 21 days, something like that, to go to court. That's not enough time for an attorney to prepare for a court. And more importantly, it's not enough time to even obtain an attorney. So a lot of guys will actually show up to that civil DV hearing without an attorney. Now, if she doesn't have an attorney and she's accused you of DV, she will show up to court with a domestic violence advocate who is hired by the court, and they get a grant from the federal government to give her the money to hire. And usually it's some feminist hag with a gender studies degree. Now, she doesn't have any legal experience. She's just there because, you know, feminists need jobs. So,
well,
and
she's a victim. Don't forget, she's a victim. A poor victim.
Well, we don't give a shit about that. I believe in equality. So, listen, until the evidence demonstrates somebody's a victim, you're never going to convince me somebody is a victim.
Yeah, I was totally being sarcastic there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. But you know, but that's what they say, and that's the counter argument is, oh, she's a victim. But you know what? Here's the thing: when you have a police investigation, the police go in there and they do an investigation and they determine whether or not somebody's a victim. And here's a spoiler alert for you guys: in the UK, domestic violence and rape and all that stuff, the conviction rate is stupidly low, and it's the same thing in United States. The reason that is because the cops know when they look at the facts that it's all bullshit. That's why the domestic violence restraining order system in civil court was created. So when Peanut shows up to court, he doesn't have an attorney because he's trying to figure it out. He's trying to work it out. He doesn't know what's going on. I mean, Jesus Christ, if you put him behind a tank, he'd know what to do. Right? That's what he knows how to do. That's what he's been trained for. Nobody is trained for their wife to portray them and for the family court to demonize them. No one trains for that. No one trains to be discriminated against. So he goes to family court. He's got no time to prepare. He doesn't show up with an attorney, and they rake him over the coals. However, even though he's going through this post-traumatic stress disorder of losing access to his child and losing access to the woman that he loves and losing all this stuff, and he doesn't really know what's going on, he makes a smart enough argument that the court can't find grounds to issue a permanent restraining order against him. And for that, Peanut, you did a fantastic job, and you need to be congratulated for that, because most guys, they don't have the wherewithal to even get that far. And I credit you for that you did a great job there, and that I credit for your combat training. So,
yeah, and that's when I still had confidence that they were going to look at the evidence. And when I walk in there and calm, I spoke calmly, and I was dressed nicely, like I go to work in Dockers, right. Button-down shirt, and I looked decent. And when I said there was going to be absolutely no evidence, that's exactly what happened. And
right.
So yeah,
and they knew it.
Yeah, they knew it. And but that was probably the last time the illusion was. I still kept hoping, like you said, because I was so blue pilled out. It was ridiculous. And listen, for anyone listening right now, I am totally red pill now. Totally. I've had a girlfriend since then, and I had a few bumps in the road with her, but I was able to leave and get myself out of that situation, and I will I could never make those mistakes again. There's just no way. There's no lesson to be learned there.
Yeah, and and that's the other side of it too. So once he gets out of the domestic violence situation and he proves to the court that he's innocent, you have to understand, these are feminists, and their goal is to pad the numbers by demonizing these men. So they can't dismiss the DV case. So what they do is, a legal term is called character rehabilitation. They allow her 2 weeks to make up some shit so they can fuck him over. So what does she do? Hey baby, come meet me in the park. I'll give you a Hummer in the car. So he's like, yeah, that sounds great. I love you. We can get back together, whatever. And she uses the kid as bait to get him there. And I'll put money on it that her attorney told her to do it. So he shows up, he's naive. He shows up, and what happens. Then they knew that the case wasn't very strong, and you're in California, so the cops are corrupt out there anyway.
Yeah, so they tried to get me, because she said that I held her with a pair of bombs.
Of course.
When they looked in the car and they're looking for these, they never find any of these weapons they claim I have. And they find a nylon sheath that's a Stanley tool holder. It's for stripping wires, and I was working on some stereo stuff. They take that and say that's the sheath for the box cutters, even though it's not a box cutter sheath, but that's what they described it in the report.
And that leads me to another thing. Peanut did a really good job of keeping control of his case. So you understand, you can see right here where he knows his case. He knows the facts inside and out. And what I mean by that is that he knew that what the cops said and he knew what the truth was. You have to understand that when you're in a situation like that, you are your best defense. You have to read every police report. You have to read every document. You have to listen to everything everybody says. Take notes if you have to. Because if you don't know your case and you can't articulate your case, no one's going to help you if you can't help yourself. And
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you, man.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
The question I have is, those things that were said that just were absolutely not true. Okay, like I didn't abuse my son. I didn't hit my wife, punch her in the face. There's just things that I didn't hold her hostage. I didn't try to rape her. None of that. So, but there's other situations where I wasn't sure if I was at fault or not. And that was a situation where she caught me cheating, or some girl called the house. But it was before we were even married. She was still pregnant, probably about 7 months pregnant. And then I think that's where she got this idea for the pregnancy, kicking her in the stomach and all that crap. But she threw a phone at me while I was sleeping, and it hit the wall, and I felt the wind go past it. It woke me up. I was like, what the hell was that? And she attacked me with the phone. So she goes to go rip up pictures, because that's what she does when she's mad. She wants to go rip up memories that I have, or, tear something up. So I go to stop her, and I grab her hair, because she's going for this portrait that we went on a cruise to Hawaii, and it was this very nice picture, and I didn't want her to get it. And I went to go grab it, and I grabbed her hair, and my palm hit the side of her head. Inadvertently, I wasn't trying to hit her in the head. I was trying to grab her hair to get me the upper hand of getting to it first, the picture. So she turns around on me, and she went nuts, because I've never done that before. And she tried to kick me in the balls, tried to bite me. She's spitting at me. So I take her to the ground, very gently, as gently as I can, and I restrain her. And that's what I did. That's the truth.
Yeah, what's the problem? That's self-defense. You just
described
self-defense.
I would have pushed her eyes in with my thumbs. That's just me, though.
Yeah. TFM's a romantic.
Yeah, I'm an old-fashioned guy. She doesn't need her eyes to give birth.
That's true. I think they can give birth while they're in a coma.
Yeah. So fuck her. Push her eyes in with her thumbs.
Yeah, she was. But she made me feel guilty about that, because she's all, "You hit me in the head," and I'm like, "I'm sorry." So here I am saying sorry again, even though it's her thing, because the stories always start where that story started at the time that I was hit her head by grabbing her hair. That's what the story started. Start with the phone.
Women do that all the time. Women will start a fight, and then when you shout, even if you didn't do anything physical, if you shouted at her, the argument would immediately turn to how you shouted at her. It didn't matter. Like, all of a sudden, what she was doing is no longer the issue. Now the issue is you shouted at her. So, like, that's just that's a common woman trick. Again, no, she shit tested the shit out of you, and you failed. You failed so bad. It's not your fault. Like, you were blue pill, but yeah, you failed every shit test, bro.
Yeah, I failed every shit test, and then towards the end, I gave up. Listen, when I accepted the last plea bargain, because I ended up, after that, I took a deal on a corporal injury to a spouse, even though I was the injured guy with a broken foot, and the doctor said they could prove it in court, because it's a very common injury when your foot is crushed. They know that's a car run over your foot, and my flipped over car would not account for a crushed foot, because the driver's compartment was completely intact. There was hardly the
So what was the crime? What was the crime you plead to?
Corporal injury to a spouse. It was a wobbler. That means it's a misdemeanor /felony. I had to do some work project. But at the start of that whole thing, I was looking at 100 years in charges, and it went down to,
they do that.
So they threw everything at me. So I took that deal, and then of course. Now she's wanting to take our son back to Kansas, where her family lives, and I just tell her straight up, no, you're not taking him to Kansas. Well, that's a ridiculous thing you're even contemplating. There's plenty of jobs here in California. She's trying to act like she can't get a job now. And
question for you. So you took the plea deal. How many years did you get from the plea deal?
The plea deal was like 3 months of work project.
All right. So what did you go to prison for?
Okay, for touching a minor under 14.
When you say touching, what do you mean?
I mean, literally, I was accused of if you read the police report, and I don't mind if somebody does, it's public record. I was accused of a 1-second touch that doesn't make sense. And then when that didn't appease them, because they couldn't establish a crime by that, I was like, listen, and it was against my son, okay? First of all, I'm not even gay. I'm not a pedophile, and I don't molest my son.
How old
It's
was
just,
your
it's a
son?
ridiculous notion. What's that?
How old was your son?
He was 7.
All right, so
What-
they accused you of molesting your kid.
No, she accused me. She said that that I was orally copulating him, all kind of weird stuff. That he was like, no, that never happened. But then somehow got him to say that there was a 1-second touch. Now,
Yeah, I'm
it
not
could be
worried
taken
about that.
out-
My question for you
No.
is this, and hear me
No,
out.
I know,
here.
but hear me out though,
Go ahead,
because
go ahead.
when they couldn't establish a crime with that. I mean, that's just, and that was after you could tell that the line of questioning. By the way, they wouldn't give me the line of questioning. They hid the questions because they were doing something crazy.
They were
So they
criminal
asked him 3
coaching him.
times. Yeah, because now they switched everything over to criminal court, and now they're saying that everything over in family court are the facts. So now all her accusations now turn into a history, right? Even though it's unfounded, and now so that's working against me. Now they're saying that I molest my son, which doesn't make sense. And then when they couldn't establish a crime with that, they somehow got him to say that he saw me standing in the living room with an erection. And I was like, I've never had an erection in front of my son.
All right, hold on. Let's stop there for a second. So you took a plea bargain on that or not?
They were charging me with forced. I mean, everything.
Well,
I know that. I'm not judging you. I'm asking you what
No.
you took on a plea bargain or if you went to trial.
I was going to go to trial. My attorney said that she could probably unhook him from saying, because she didn't believe it. The attorneys didn't believe it. I said it wasn't true. I had been offering to take polygraphs.
Right. That's
And,
again. I'm not worried about
but-
any of that. What I'm worried about is
I know, but she said,
Okay.
but I sat there in jail for 2 years, and I also watched the courtrooms and how. Remember you were explaining the other day how people would go through and they'd line 50 people up and go through 15 minutes, and there's no confidentiality.
Right.
You sit in these chambers.
Yep.
I sat in those things for days and hours, and I watched every single sex-related case come through there, guilty or not, evidence or not, get their ass handed to them. Every single one. Not a one made it through. There was even a case where a guy went to trial. They read the charges, and 2 of the jury members started crying just hearing the charges.
Yeah.
And so if they parade me out there, my attorney said there's a good possibility I was going to lose. And so they offered me 8 years only because I'd just taken that deal and it was on probation for the gym. So now I'm a wife beater. Now
All right. Hold on. Stop for a
I'm
minute.
just gonna, wait. Hang on a second. Right.
Before you
I'm
ask the
gonna mute
question,
you.
Feed. Hold on for a second.
Go ahead.
Before you ask the question.
Answer quick.
So the question I have, Peanut, is this: when they question your son, did they question your son with a psychological forensic interviewer, or who questioned your son? And this is important.
Right. I'm gonna unmute him now. Right. Peanut. It's over to you.
Believe me, I know I sound like an idiot right now, but at the time when they showed that, I was like on the attorney. I said, wait a minute, where are the questions? They didn't include the questions that they asked him. It was just his one-sided answers. The questions were missing.
All right. The reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm going to explain it to the viewers, and just so we're on the same page, they do this shit all the fucking time. All right? Now, you have to understand, this is a 7-year-old boy. Okay? Now, he's a prepubescent. Okay, this is how they're treating him. He's a prepubescent victim of child abuse. In order to get a legitimate conviction, you have to do what's referred to as a forensic interview. Now, in order to get a forensic interview, you have to be specially trained. So this is a he said, she said situation, and a 7-year-old child does not necessarily have the capacity to communicate in that way. In most jurisdictions in the United States, they're not qualified as a witness. Now, with that in mind, if you get accused or wrongfully accused of domestic violence or child abuse against your child, and they don't do a forensic interview, the case is tainted. And the reason that the case is tainted is because the interviewer can coach the child. Now, let me explain what this means, and I'm going to use my own case as an example because it's a textbook example. When my oldest two children were sexually assaulted, the perpetrator actually coached the children to say that it was a friend of mine who did it. And they used that to try to keep my children from me. Now, when I questioned, what are you talking about? Who was the person who did the interview? It turned out it was somebody who was untrained in the area of child sexual assault. It was somebody who had no expertise, no knowledge, no experience, no training, no college education related to it. They just had some random person. And then it turns out that the person didn't even ask my kid. They ended up asking my ex-wife, who lied, who covered up the abuse. We found out 5 years later what the truth was when the child actually became old enough and told the truth of what actually happened. And the counselor that created the fake allegation is no longer in business. They closed shop. They quit counseling. I don't know. They're fucking giving head at truck stops or something. I have no idea. The reason I ask you that, Peanut, is because when they accuse you of the crime of abusing your child, right? They have to actually have a legitimate interview, and there's a protocol that has to happen. It's a very strict.
I know about that one. I was informed about that. That's why I was so upset that they weren't including the questions, because I know he's been coerced. I never touched my son. I'm not even gay.
I believe you.
So I don't know how to battle. So I'm looking at this. I'm going, that part didn't bother me because, listen, me and my son, I've always had a shy bladder growing up, so me and my son pee together in the morning times so he can get used to peeing next to somebody.
Yeah, but that's a normal father-son.
Yes, of course it is. And I shower with him every day because it's easier to shower with him when I'm getting ready for work and she's getting ready for work, and so we see each other naked all the time. And I've changed his diaper since day one. It's not a mystery, right? You understand that as a father. So
yeah.
They play this off of him as, like I said, my son has never seen me with an erection, but he's at the age where remember I was telling you, he tells you what you want to hear.
Well, you have to understand that
adults, because he's trying to be a people pleaser, okay? Because he's 7. And he's going through missing me and her being drawing him in, because emotionally to the arguments, she goes and she hides behind him. She does all these things, weird stuff, where she brings him into the argument. So he's suffering too, and I could see from his perspective why he would do that, because I remember being that age. And I remember saying that my dad, I was exaggerate stories about him spanking me and what he did to me, just so I could be on my mom's team and my sister's team when they were bad-mouthing him. So I get that. So, but that stuff was absolutely not true. And my son's never seen me with an erection. So when they got him to say, they asked him if it was hard or something like that, and he said yes, it was hard. My son wouldn't know what I mean. The proportions. When we were in the shower, I think the last time he said, "Daddy, you have a big pee-pee and mine's little," and he's noticing those things, and he's right at eye level with it, right?
Yeah. But
so
here's
he
the
wouldn't
thing.
know, but he's never seen an erect penis. He knows,
right? But here's the thing: whether he saw an erect penis or not, that particular question, and for the people that have legal knowledge that watch the stream, you can confirm this. Those are what's called leading questions, and when you lead a child to say what you want, you can get a child to say whatever you want them to say.
They absolutely let them, but see, they also had to establish the crime, because touching a child. Listen, I've touched my son several times in the context of changing his diaper, when he goes to the doctor, checking him out and make sure he's okay. There's been several instances where we've had to touch him in a legitimate way, and so to say that, it's just too close to how they did it. It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
So your attorney was never given the text or the recording of the interview?
No, she just kept shrugging her shoulders and going, "I don't know where it's at. I don't know where it's at."
All right.
And so I was frustrated by that. But listen, when they got him to say that, that's when I gave up. I was like, really? I was like, I just wanted to bang my head against the glass, because I'm in that little lawyer booth, and I'm going, I can't understand how they got him to do that at first, because I had to really look at the reports, and then I started seeing it, because I was going, why would my son say that? But my son also drew a picture of me chasing the car that day at the park with a knife in my hand and dripping blood, because she got him to draw it. So, and I know my son.
That's really common, and for you fathers out there that have been separated from your children, and the fathers who were innocent, because the fathers who were actually child molesters, y'all can fuck off and die. But the ones like this guy who, there's no real accusation, and you can tell that there's no real accusation because they just said, oh, he saw his erect penis, so therefore apparently that's a crime. When you have to reach for that. It's
literally a 1 second touch is what they claimed, and then he saw me with a boner. Apparently, that's the crime that I got 8 years for.
So
I asked the attorney. I said, listen, does anyone think or have any doubt that I know how to have sex? If I was molesting somebody, I think I would know how to fucking do it. I wouldn't do it 1 second, and I wouldn't have done it never before, because there was no accusations of this ever happening before or after. Nothing.
Right, but you got to remember that everybody around you was a feminist.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to want to believe that all of a sudden, oh yeah, I'm going through a divorce and I'm going through a separation with my family, and I think I'll molest today. I think that's what's on the agenda.
I think the goal was to get you to take a plea deal, which it sounds like what happened.
Because she said that I had a very good chance of losing. I got an outside attorney to give me another opinion. And it was just, no. They were like, you got a very good chance of losing. If they get him to say this in court, you're done.
I have a question about your second opinion attorney real quick. And I apologize for cutting you off, TFM.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. When you went to the second attorney, did he ask you how much money you had for another attorney, ever?
He said it was going to cost me about $100,000.
Right. So the reason he said that was to see if you had the horsepower to defend. When you said you didn't have the horsepower to defend, he said, yeah, take the plea deal. Because he wanted to make his money.
Out from the first one. Because remember, I took the deal on the other one. I was already tapped out. I already sold the house.
Let DDJ finish, dude.
No, I was good. Keep going. He's good. He's good. Thank you, Kat.
No, I was tapped. I was tired. And at this time, I'm just so disillusioned, and I can't believe it. Instead of committing suicide, that's why I took the deal. I said, just get me out of fucking society. I don't want to be here anymore.
Did you have any of you guys here in the chat right now? This includes you, Jimbo. Have you Ronin?
You kind of cut out. I didn't hear what you said.
Cut out
the movie Ronin.
The movie.
Is it the 47 Samurai?
No, it's a Robert De Niro.
Oh yeah, Robert De Niro. Yeah. The other guy from Leon. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's a scene in Ronin where this guy's talking about how he was able to overcome all this questioning and torture and shit like that. And Robert De Niro just calls him out and he goes, nobody gets through it. That was Peanut's position. Yeah. Right. And Sean Penn's talking mad shit.
Yeah.
It's called Ronin, little boy. So the point is this. You got to understand, this man loved his wife. And this is very common in a marriage. You love your wife, you take your vows, you expect them to be for life. She starts fucking with you emotionally. You're not perfect, you make mistakes. But you're trying to make it work. She leads you on. This is very hypergamous. She's trying to set you up, but you think she's trying to be legitimate. And so your emotions go back and forth. And what that does is it creates a type of like a combat fatigue, And so you get really super tired. And then as things start to escalate, and then you're human, you're ignorant, you make mistakes, things start to get worse. And then by the time that all this stuff happens, you're done. You're like, fuck it, I'm done. And you take the plea deal. This is very, very common. And the thing that I would tell you, Peanut, is two things. Number one, at some point, I would try to reestablish contact with your son, because what you're going to find is that if he grew up without you, your ex talked mad shit to him. He probably is pissed off at her. He's pissed off at you because he doesn't know any better. He's had all this shit put in his mind. But more importantly, you should go back and you should look at your entire case file. And even though it hurts, you should look at the divorce file and you should look at the criminal file. And you should see if the attorney who you hired, if she's still around, you should see if she's got all the evidence that they gave her. And then I would look at the whole thing and I would verify whether or not they actually had something to give you. Because here's the thing, if they never gave your attorney the evidence and the attorney told you to take a plea deal with no evidence of what the actual interview was, your attorney fucked up. Your attorney just fucked up. She didn't do the job she needed to do. Because I'll tell you what, I've known plenty of attorneys where somebody's tried to make some shit up and we're like, hey, let's see what's the evidence say? What does the therapist say? And the therapist is available for discovery. The therapist is available to be questioned. The documentation is there. The fact that your attorney just said bend over and take it leads me to believe that there was a conversation between the prosecutor and your attorney that you didn't know about. And this is very, very common. And so all I'm saying is that, and it may not change anything, but at the same token, I mean, it's, you freely admit to the stuff you're guilty of. You freely admit to cheating on your wife. You freely admit to doing the things you did. You understand that that's just, it is what it is. But when it comes to the stuff that they lied about you, they, you contest the stuff that's not true. And this is very common amongst men who go through this. But like I said, you're going to see that this happens all the time.
And it's taken me 3 years to even get up the courage to even say this, because I know how ridiculous it sounds, because a lot of people have the misconception that guys that have been to prison or guys that have been accused of stuff, they all say they're not guilty. Listen, men in prison tell each other the truth. They might lie to the cops and they might lie to other people, but the majority of the men in there are either overcharged, or a lot of them are guilty. There's no doubt. I mean, they do catch it's a wide net they cast.
Yeah, but in the last 3 years, they've arrested 3 crime lab chemists for falsifying evidence, and it jeopardized, between the 3 of them, it jeopardized like 40,000 cases because they got false guilty pleas.
Well, yeah. And can I tell you something real quick too? Because they, and then I'll wind it down. The polygraphs that I asked for, I know that polygraphs aren't admissible in court. I know a lot of people are going to say they don't work or they're whatever, and I agree with most of that, except for I can tell you, because I know that polygraphs work on me, and they work on me in a way that, if there's no emotional attachment to the question, like when I went and paid for a polygraph to try to prove to my wife that I hadn't slept with her sister right after the fact, and also that I didn't punch her in the face. I was going to use it for the court too, or at least tell them about it in open court, even if it's not admissible. Well, I couldn't pass the part that said, have I ever punched my wife in the face with a fist? I failed that in the polygraph that I paid for. And he said the reason for that was because it was too close to the truth. I felt guilty about hitting her on the side of the head. That was the absolute truth. I just never punched a woman in the face. That's ridiculous. So, yeah. But I passed the one that said I didn't sleep with her sister because I never even touched her sister. So that was a flying colors test that I passed.
Well,
and there's no emotional reaction to it. It's not a
right,
test, right?
And that's really what the polygraph does. It measures emotional stress. It doesn't measure honesty or dishonesty, right. And that's actually one of the reasons why the courts don't allow them. But they try to use them as an intimidation tactic sometimes.
Okay, but what they do now, because I'm considered a sicko, okay, so I got to go to counseling once a week to this place. Now they require that I take polygraphs every 6 months. So I've been telling a PO here and there that I kind of wasn't guilty, and I had one PO threaten to throw me in jail if I ever said that again. He said, "Don't you ever let me hear that come out of your mouth again, or I'll put you in jail." That's exactly what he got in my face. Well, he wasn't my PO. He was like the PO of the day or something like that. So, but he kind of bamboozled me into thinking he was cool, and then he turned on me. But anyway. I go to these polygraphs every 6 months, and they just ask you, are you using drugs? Are you filing your parole? Those type of things. So I went there and told my counselor, I said, listen, I'm not guilty of what they're saying. It's just, if you look at it with critical thinking by itself, it wouldn't make sense. I said, but don't take my word for it. Just ask me on the polygraph if I committed the crime. So she said, okay. She got with the polygraph examiner, and they made a special case for me because they normally don't they call it an instant or something like that, or a flash. Okay, that's something, if you just commit a crime, they give it to you right then. But see, they wouldn't give it to me then. So they asked me point blank, did I touch my son? That was the question. Did I touch him? And did I have an erection in his presence? And I passed with flying colors. And I passed the polygraph where you put your hands on the metal plates to measure your sweat, and your feet, your shoes come off, and you put your feet on the metal plates on the floor. And I'm not saying it's the it's so advanced, but it's the most advanced that they have right now. And it was so clear that I passed that she didn't even have to measure it. She goes, "Nope, you passed." She goes, "I don't even have to."
That's why I'm saying that you need to contact the prosecutor's office. You need to contact everybody involved, including Child Protective Services, and you just need to get all your records. And then you need to go find an attorney. And the other thing that I would do is you need to go get yourself a therapist that is not court ordered. And the reason that you need to do that is because nobody in that system is going to help you. Your court-ordered therapist isn't going to help you. Your probation officer at the end of the day isn't going to help you. You need to have your own. Because if something ever happens and you're able to prove your innocence, you're going to sue the ever-living shit out of all these people back to the Stone Ages. So
I think it would have to be my son coming forward, and hopefully he remembers.
He's too young.
I don't know, because I remember stuff from when I was 5.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about from a legal perspective. He's tainted as a witness.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I remember some stuff when I was a little kid, but you can't remember not being touched because, you know, how could that possibly stick in your memory? It's like proving a negative. Like
Right.
So that's not going to happen. Just not physically possible.
The other thing that I would probably do in an effort to re-establish contact with your son is I would start a diary where I'm writing him letters. And then if you ever get a chance to see him, give him the diary.
Yeah, I've done that a few times, and I always end up, you know, throwing it out or not. My thoughts become, and I'm in better shape than what I sound. Actually, I'm okay right now. I'm having to relive it right now, so I'm a little upset, and I notice I have a shortness of breath. I'm having some anxiety because it's talking about this, and it's actually gone worse than what I thought it was going to go because I really have struggled through this whole interview, man. It was really hard. And
I've been where you're at. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I didn't even blame the audience or any of the guys that were saying, "Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?" I say, "Yeah, I don't know either." I mean, you explained it better than I could. I understand it emotionally, what was going on. I know I don't kick myself for that stuff anymore. I moved on as far as I can. Now the next step is, you know, I'm diagnosed with the military. I get a pension from the PTSD is taken care of. I get a pension. I did have a counselor, but it's a woman counselor. I didn't like where she was going with some of the things that she was saying to me, like saying that why don't I have enough self-worth to, you know, why do I need to be treated by these women like this? And I'm going, what do you mean? Because as a guy, I don't want to hit her with the gynocentric stuff, you know, because she's so blue pill. I can't deal with her.
I would, if you find a counselor, my suggestion is you do this. You find a counselor with a PhD, like a psychologist or a psychiatrist, preferably a psychologist, and you find somebody who's older and male.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. And I requested a male too at one time, but that kind of got rebuffed.
That's because the feminists with the gender studies degrees don't want you to have them. That's why when I was telling you, you got to go get your own counselor. That's what you need to do. If you really want help to deal with this, you got to get your own counselor, because when you have your own counselor, they're in your corner. Everybody else is in somebody else's corner right now.
Well, I feel like I can't. Okay, there was a situation where afterwards I got caught with a possession case. TFM knows about this, and I had to end up going to rehab as a plea bargain because I was homeless, and I got caught with a little bit of dope that I thought was just a misdemeanor ticket. But because of my sex crime, somehow they wanted to give me 3 years. But because of my outstanding military record, the judge gave me some leniency. I only did 9 months, even though that was ridiculously overdone still. Went to rehab. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, you need to stop taking plea deals. That seems to be a bad habit of yours.
Yeah.
No, I had to take that plea deal because I'm on parole. But because I asked the judge to look at my polygraphs. I said, and I wasn't trying to say that I was innocent, because you say that, you know, like I've tried that already, it doesn't work. So I just said, if you don't believe me that maybe there was something amiss in my case, please look at my polygraphs, please. And so they subpoenaed the polygraphs, and the place wouldn't, the place I go to counseling wouldn't send them over in time. You know,
that's common. That's common.
Yeah. Yeah. So they and the judge didn't want me to put that in open court anyway. So he made me rewrite this little thing saying that I was sorry for my crime, because they're basically trying to give me 3 years on this little tiny misdemeanor thing because of my past record, not anything that I was doing then. And I had a drug problem at that time, you know. It was like, come on. So
well, you were self-medicating, of course.
Yeah, I was self-medicating, and I can't deal with everything. And I'm dealing with homelessness, I'm dealing with a drug problem, and I'm dealing with missing my son. I mean, missing my son, that never lets up. But I'm at the point now where I feel like I need somebody that is going to help me, or at least be a buffer between me and my son, because I think that if I were to contact him directly, he might be a little bit not resistant towards that. Because I remember my mom did the same thing to my dad. This is a repeat of what my dad went through. So, and I hated my dad till I was about 35. It took me till I was 35 to figure out, oh shit, my mom's a bitch. My mom's a liar. And she finally admitted to me what she did recently, last year. So, and it changed the way I felt about her. And I don't want my son to feel like that, because it's going to take him a while, unless he's super smart, you know what I mean? And super red pill quick. He's going to struggle with this for a long time. He's going to be bitter, and he's going to end up hating her, and he's going to end up, maybe he'll probably forgive me, but after I'm dead, because my dad just died. I just found out he died about a month ago, and I never got to see him to let him know that, hey man, I understand now. I get it.
Well, let me ask you this: Are you homeless now? Are you working?
No, I'm 100% disabled from the military. My PTSD is that severe.
Are you still in California?
Yes, and I'm not homeless. I live in a home with a couple other roommates, and I have my own room. It's nice, and
sure.
It's all good.
My suggestion to you: where is your son live? What state?
I have no idea, and because I can't contact him, and I don't want to put too many feelers out there and give them the idea that I'm trying to track him down.
I would find. Are you still on parole?
Yeah, I get off in September this year. Right. I get off in a few months.
My suggestion to you is this: once you get off parole, move out of the state.
I don't. Why do you say that? Because I mean, I'm not saying
because California is dog shit.
Well, you know, I thought about going and traveling because I've got the pension now, and I don't have any bills. I don't have anything.
You just hop on a train with a knapsack and a sick, you know. Like
that's what I thought about doing, and going to Europe. And
well, you can't
go to Europe. Don't go to Europe.
You can't get to Europe on a train. Just so you know.
No, I can fly there.
How good the drugs are.
Well, whereabouts in Europe are we talking? You know.
Well, when I was talking, I didn't tell you guys that me and Messenger Rising. He was really helping me out for a while, and I was talking to him, and I even made reference because he wanted to go climb some mountain, and I was talking about going and seeing him, and he was kind of open to that. But
yeah, okay, so Messenger Rising is in the UK,
right?
And you know,
I've got some other online buddies
too. The laws are pretty shit here.
What's that?
The laws are pretty shit here. I mean. Messenger Rising will tell you that. Believe me, he'll tell you that 100%. I mean, I'm a big fan of Messenger Rising, but you know, if anything, he'll probably tell you, come here. You know,
go to rural America. Go see some stuff. Go to some place that's a little bit more a red state than a blue state, but you need to get off the West Coast once you're off of parole.
Yeah. Well, and, listen, I'm never going to live with a woman again, and I'm never going to get married. Period.
Well, but
so
you need to get out of that system.
Aren't I safer now?
No, because
but
I'll be out in September.
You still have a record,
right? In California, listen. In California, if they need somebody to blame for some shit, they're going to find somebody with a record like you. You'll be walking to the store or something, and they're going to just come up and harass you. And I've seen this happen before. That's the reason I'm saying it. Is, you know, it happens in Washington, it happens in Oregon, and it happens in California. And so that's what I'm saying. Once you get off parole, I would dip. I would find some other place to live that's got a lower cost of living, or at least reasonable cost of living near a VA place, but someplace that is probably not. And I'm not Republican, but someplace that's run by the GOP.
Yeah, just don't go to Oklahoma.
Right.
What is that? I lived in Oklahoma as a kid.
Oh well,
you know,
it's not worth mentioning right now.
So I'm gonna. We're gonna move on.
Okay, thank you. TFM, thank you, man. I'm your fan, man.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I'm really sorry for what you had to go through. I guess, you know, it sucks. I didn't know about, you know, your mom basically hid the fact that she lied about your dad, poisoned your relationship with him your entire life, waited until he died before she came clean, which is so fucked up. You know, obviously you don't want that for your son, you know, but you can't red pill someone who doesn't want to be red pilled. So if your son is still like, you know, if he swallowed it and he believes all the lies, you kind of just have to just be there. It sucks.
Well, that's why I don't mind doxing myself. That's why I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I stay where he can see me. And if he wants to watch me, because I don't talk to him in my videos because that would be a violation of talking to the victim. So I don't say his name, or I might say I miss my son once in a while. But I put up videos on my YouTube channel. It's Bruno Berry, BrunoBerry. I don't care. I don't mind. I'm doxxed already. I use my real name.
Okay,
so
all right.
And I want him to find me and know. I mean, if people want to come get me, well, I mean, whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
That doesn't bother me.
All right. Well, good luck, man. I hope if your son ever watches this video, I mean, Terrence Pop did a good video about this too. You know, you want to get the father's side. When you're raised by a single mother, you're told all kinds of bullshit. Make sure before you judge him, before you write him off as a piece of shit who abandoned you, talk to him and get his side of the story. Because I guarantee your single mom is fucking lying to you. As someone who was raised by a single mother, they're fucking lying to you.
Yeah. And just some insight from the chat. It's from the Jake side. He says, Feeding Cat, can you relay this message to Peanut? It isn't too late. I am 21 years old and I recently reconnected with my father. My mother brainwashed me into hating him for years, but it only took a night of talking to him for me to love him. He told me the truth and I accepted it.
There you go. Yeah,
anyway.
There you go. Good luck, man. Take care.